The following program is being brought to you by Loving's Moon, Tim and Jerry's Auto Sales, Garden Bowl, American Gratitude, Patrick Dugan's Coffee House, and AAA Loans and U-Haul. Two guys who had no business being in radio decided to start their own podcast, and now they just won't shut up. Hey! A Power Surge media production. Here they are, JB Surge and Snipes, Uncaged.
That's right, it is Uncaged, episode number 28. I don't know why it says that two guys who had no business being in radio, but yet you're still in radio.
I am.
I mean, what?
I'm doing that sports show.
That thing you do?
That thing I do?
Yeah.
I do a sports show on Tuesday, Wednesdays, and Thursday in broadcast radio. So, yeah, I'm still doing it.
Still doing radio.
doing
I'm the oddball out.
You're the oddball out.
I figured.
But
Whatever.
you're still on the radio. I hear your ads every day.
That's true. I still have ads running on the radio, which is, once again, like I said, it's pretty hysterical.
Yeah.
Considering I was told that I am no longer allowed on your set of radio stations, but
Well, there's some
here
of
I
my,
am
yeah,
still.
Well, and they're mostly all my clients.
Yeah.
And so my clients want you, so I...
Minus one, I guess. I mean, I've heard one that was Joe's, I think.
Yeah. The
ProTech, I think. I've heard of I've heard that one too.
Yeah. Well, and I don't know if the Canvas one...
Oh, yeah, I've heard that one too.
Yeah, so...
Yeah. That's where shut happens.
Where shit happens.
If only we were allowed to say shit on the radio, which
we're not.
But we're not. But we can say shit here.
Yeah.
Anyways, episode number 28 of Uncaged. JB Surge, Snipes joining you as always. Not in Loving's Moon tonight. We had a nice little change of schedule. Mom had some rough goings, and
so we decided it was probably best to cancel with the bar, and we're doing this later than normal, but we're doing it from home. So
yeah, doing it from the place where everything kind of started.
It started right in this room.
Yeah, right here in this room. 27 episodes ago. Just what was that? Almost. Was it around
that
nine?
Was,
almost.
It was July 3rd.
A little over 9 months ago. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's crazy.
We need to have a bash on around July.
Yeah, on the first weekend of July. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which I don't know. I have to look at the calendar date on that one and see if there is a Thursday show, or at least a Thursday. Thursday, July 1st. Believe it or not, is on there. So
that'll be one year anniversary of our podcast.
Pretty much. Yeah. So that'll be.
And we still do it no matter who's listening.
That's right.
Pretty much.
Yeah. You can tune in if you like. You can tune if you want. It's your choice.
No,
America.
No Can Equip Girl
no
tonight. And
no Colin and Brenda, no Brian, no Debbie.
Yeah. We will be there back next week, I'm pretty sure.
Likely, yeah. We just, like I said, we just had a little change of schedule, which went mom's doing fine. She just got shot up a little bit, so.
Yeah, shot up.
Not, guns, and no, it's not.
No,
it's not
no.
that. So
she got
drugs.
She got shot with some drugs to help her get by on
with some pain. So
yeah, she's doing good.
That's once again the all-American way.
Yeah,
so
take drugs.
To take drugs
better.
with your pain. Yeah,
right.
For
her being a pharmacist, it's drugs are in her DNA.
Oh, 100%. Yeah,
okay.
She sells it and makes money off of it. Yeah.
There you go. Okay.
Well, I was going to say, speaking of the all-American way, I was just coming across this. We were just watching the game. It's obviously Jackie Robinson Day. You know why April 15th is particularly why we celebrate why the MLB celebrates Jackie Robinson Day?
Oh! I thought you meant April 15th. Well, that's usually tax day, but they've moved it back.
I was going to say
that was what I was thinking.
Yeah, it is tax day. So if you haven't filled out your taxes yet, whoo.
Well, you got another month.
Oh, they pushed it back?
They moved back, to May 15th.
See, now, I was freaking out because I just now got my taxes done like a week ago or something like that. Yeah. So I was just like, okay, we cut it close, but I think we're all great.
We're good.
We cut the deadline
Yeah.
Got my state tax return today, which was a whopping $87.
Awesome. Well, at least you're not paying in.
Yeah.
Just look at it that way.
Yeah. I used to have to pay in some odd years ago, but nonetheless, yeah. But yeah, anyways, April 15th, Jackie Robinson Day. Well, why is it called Jackie Robinson Day, April 15th?
Well, because of Jackie Robinson broke the color barrier in baseball.
Yeah, on this day in 1947 is when he started for the Brooklyn Dodgers at first base.
Okay.
First baseman. So, which I found out from on the Royals broadcast. Of course, the Negro Leagues Baseball Museum is located in Kansas City. It's the only one of its kind. And of course, they were talking to the president of the Negro Leagues Museum, Bob Kendrick, and he had mentioned something I didn't know about Jackie Robinson. Apparently, he had played football when he was in college.
Oh, he did.
He was a football player, and believe it or not, that was his strong sport. Like he was probably his best at football and track. I don't know what position he played. I couldn't look that up, but apparently he was an All-American at UCLA.
Okay,
like it was.
But there's a lot of people, especially athletes, want to try something different. That's out of their comfort zone because it becomes a challenge. If they're really good at something, it's not a challenge, and so maybe baseball was a little bit more of a challenge, and that's why he enjoyed it more and did it more. Kind of like playing music to you comes normally very easy. Yeah. And so you wanted to be a little bit out of your comfort zone, and so you started singing.
Yeah. And that was different.
Right. And so you excel now at those things because it was a challenge. And so it
was a challenge. I think another challenging thing was bowling for me in high school.
Yes.
Because I think at one time I was like, you know what would be really cool is to go on the Pro Tour. I think that's still pretty cool. I still have aspirations to go onto the Pro Tour, but it's still very hard to get onto the Pro Tour, at least succeed on the Pro Tour, because I mean, it's the best in the world. But yeah, it is a challenge, and
winter leagues are now over.
Yeah,
and so they're going into the summer leagues. Are you bowling in the summer?
I'm going to go ahead and take the summer off.
Okay,
I've got a lot of stuff going on. Of course, the Garden City Wind are going to get going this summer for the first time in a couple of years since COVID knocked us off last year.
Right.
And so, yeah, we're going to get that going, and I'm going to.
And for those that don't know out there, you had applied for a position with the Tennessee Titans, and you haven't heard back yet.
Have not heard back yet.
Okay.
So, for the PA announcer job, which is what I do around here in Garden City, I've announced high school. I've announced high school football, baseball, and basketball. I've announced for college football, basketball, and baseball. And, of course, I do announce for the Garden City Wind, which is the professional baseball team that is here in Garden City. It's their own independent league. So,
and you're the longest tenured employee for the Pecos League
of the Garden City Wind, yeah.
Of the Garden City Wind.
It's pretty crazy. So, but hopefully, obviously they haven't kicked me to the curb yet. So, so I'll do that again this year. But yeah,
and you've talked to the commissioner. You are on for this year. Then
I have not talked to him as of late, but
need to give him a text.
Probably see if I still have a job.
he's been busy with David Peterson going around because he owns a team in the American Association League. So.
Yeah, those of you that don't know, I mean, it's once you get past the minor leagues in the MLB, you have a crap ton, and I mean a crap ton of independent ball leagues, including the Pecos League, which is where Garden City is at, and the American Association is kind of the step up from the Pecos League. Mm-hmm. You know, it's where most decide to get their next digs in professional baseball.
Sure.
But yeah, that's I
noticed the date you had for 1947. Do you know also what happened in 1947? I believe it was October 15th, but I may be wrong.
October 15th.
1947. You may have to look that up. I think it was October 15th, 1947.
I'm not sure.
The United States Army Air Corps became the United States Air Force, its own independent.
Okay, so that's right. The Air Corps was a division of the Army.
That's right.
Before it became their own
entity
of the military,
right? And so I believe it was October 15th. You may have to check that because I may have my dates mixed up because I believe October 15th was also sometime around the time that Chuck Yeager broke the sound barrier with the Bell X1.
Oh, okay.
So that might have been around that same time. So,
yeah, I was going to say, coming up later in the podcast, we will actually have an Air Force history quiz for Snipes, and it looks like I think one or maybe both of those questions are probably in the quiz on when the Air Force's birthday is, and also I believe has something to do with Chuck Yeager. But yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's coming up later, but yeah, I thought I'd touch on the Jackie Robinson thing. I didn't know that he had played football and an All-American, and believe it or not, like the only season he played baseball for UCLA, you know what his batting average was? 97.
Oh my.
0.97, yeah.
That's horrible.
But and of course, his claim to fame, I guess, or his claim in baseball, is that on his college's opening day, he went 4 for 4, and he stole home not once but twice. He stole home.
Stole home from third, huh?
You never see that really.
Right.
I mean, you see that maybe once every 20 years if you're lucky, but
Hosmer did it.
Yeah, you see it when you steal home. Yeah. And it's only happened maybe once or twice in Garden City Wind history, but twice in one game.
Wow.
Incredible.
And, well, if you think about it, it'd be more impressive if he stole home from first.
Yeah.
That would be pretty... That would be a lot of errors out in the field.
I was going to say it would be maybe one stolen base, but there would be a crap ton of errors involved in that one.
Right,
But yeah, that's something that I had come across with Jackie Robinson, and he was a 4-sport athlete. He was the school's first athlete to ever varsity letter in 4 different sports: football, basketball, baseball, and track.
Right.
He did long jump there.
That's wow. Okay.
Yeah, so that's what's going on. Speaking. I had a segue there involved with something involving the Washington D.C. But anyways, I'm going to just jump right into this. Apparently today, Washington D.C. had the Washington football team, the Redskins.
Yeah, the Redskins.
Apparently had put up this tweet about, here's some names that we're, I guess, considering. It's not like official or anything, but they put up this list of names. And among these names, I think it was the Aces, the Renegades, the Warriors. What was it? The first. How much of a cop out is this one? The First City Football Club, the FCFC.
That
sounds kind of soccer to me. Archers, Beacons, Belters. What I think it should be the Red Tails for the Tuskegee Airmen.
And we know, the Red Tails having to do the color of the tails that the Tuskegee Airmen during World War II flew.
Right.
They started out in the P-40 Warhawk or Kitty Hawk, however.
Oh, there you
go. And then they upgraded to the P-51 Mustang, and all their tails were painted red.
Red.
Now, it did upset a lot of German pilots when they realized that they were getting beat by colored pilots. Because most of the Germans were racist, big time, and so they didn't like the idea that they were getting flown around circles with by these pilots,
by the colored people,
right. And
it's pretty crazy. I like that. And what was it? What it was in the movie Red Tails, wasn't it? That we saw that.
We did.
About that?
Very good movie.
Very good movie.
Very good movie.
Among other names, the Razorbacks, which you don't want to take away from
more
a college
Arkansas.
team. Yeah. The Defenders, not bad. And then, of course, this was a mentioned name, the football team. Just keep it.
Right. And I had heard that that's what they're going to keep for this year again.
They'll keep it for this year. That's not going to be a change in the immediate future. But
I, however, am not politically correct, and so they will always be the Redskins until they change that name.
Redskins, there you go. Yep. Also, the Wild Hogs. I think that was kind of the Hogettes back in the 80s. And I think that was a pretty good name. The Riders, the Red Wolves, I heard was really popular as well. Aviators, Ambassadors. I also was considering the Senators too. I mean, from the old
because that was a baseball team, wasn't
it? The old ball club there. That's right. In Washington. The Warriors, like I said, Commanders, Pilots. The Riders, the Rising, the Swifts, the Wayfarers. I didn't really like.
Wayfarer, isn't that
Wayfarers? Yeah,
the Wayfarers. That's kind of like that online shopping
Oh yeah, Wayfair.
Wayfair.
There you go. The Wayfarers.
Yeah.
Get all your wonderful stuff here. There was also the presidents, which I think is kind of a cop out. I was like, Washington presidents.
Right now, who wants to be known as a president? With the troubles that are going on in this country.
Certainly not me. Yeah. I wouldn't want my football team to, and also demon cats.
Demon cats?
Demon cats. Okay.
Well, that kind of fits Washington.
Yeah.
Because everybody up in Washington are a bunch of demons.
Demons. So. I was going to say, there was I looked at some of the comments because Pat McAfee had initially posted his video about that on his show.
Okay.
And there was one comment that said, comments are saying, here's what I think the football team. One guy says, the Wonders, because I wonder how long it takes before someone is offended by the new name.
Exactly. Well, Tom Hanks will be because of the movie The Wonders.
The Wonders, yeah.
Or that thing you do.
Yeah, see? You've already offended Tom Hanks, Eric. Yeah. So, I put my comment down there, the Red Tails and the Senators. And then one guy said, and I agree with him wholeheartedly, is that anything other than the Washington Sentinels is a huge missed opportunity.
Oh yeah, the Sentinels from
Replacements.
Replacements. Another good movie.
You got it. Yeah. Now I'm fully on board with the name the Washington Sentinels.
I like that.
And changing the uniforms to what they had, the red and blue and the gray. Yeah,
the gray, right?
With the Washington
with the
football
W,
and
right?
Yeah. See, you're not going to offend anything there. They're gonna call themselves the Sentinels, but they're not going to have anything quote unquote racist on their football helmets.
You're going to offend the Sentinels, though.
I guess.
What is a Sentinel?
I have no clue.
Yeah, exactly. So you can't be offended. Well, somebody,
of
some Karen somewhere will find a
Karen. Gosh, of course it's Karen.
Yeah.
Got to find a Karen anyway. Anywhere, anyhow. Yeah. So. But yeah, speaking. Okay, this is where the segue was. Here's what I was about to do. Segue. Speaking of Washington D.C., it is home, of course, to the Arlington National Cemetery,
yes,
which is getting into our topic of the night. Which you had visited. I had no clue that there were more national cemeteries in this.
I did
nation.
Not know it either.
Yeah, so I mean, of course, everyone knows about Arlington. It's the most famed national cemetery, and it might be the biggest. I don't know. Of course, if there were ever a competitor in the national cemetery, I don't know. How would you say massiveness of its nature? I think the national cemetery you visited in San Antonio over this past week probably holds a light to it.
It was phenomenal. And to see all those white stones lined up almost like soldiers.
Yeah.
And I don't know the exact many plots. I would say there's close to 1 million that I saw, and it just kept going.
Yeah.
It kept going. And it's adjacent to Fort Sam Houston.
The joint base there.
The joint base there in San Antonio. And I'm thinking that a lot of this has to do with the fact that there's 5 military installations around San Antonio, so that most of these buried probably served in that area or lived in that area at the time. But I didn't know there was another national cemetery, and it is huge, and it's in the center, almost the center of
San Antonio. Yeah,
San Antonio.
Yeah.
I did after I did view that. I went around with my uncle, and we visited a cemetery that was just down from the Riverwalk and the Alamo.
Wow.
And it was older and older, but you could tell it wasn't a national cemetery, of course, but it was just a regular cemetery. But the stones in there are from the 1800s. Indian fighters were buried there. None of those that want to question it, none of that I know of from the Battle of the Alamo are buried there because those bodies were actually burned by the Mexican soldiers after the battle.
Oh yeah.
So, but you had I went through it. It was falling apart. The whole cemetery was. The stones were getting deteriorating and things like that. So there's no upkeep. Whereas this national cemetery, there is a team of people. Probably well over 200 people.
I was going to say,
that's
probably.
all they do is they maintain the grounds of this cemetery. And you go to a regular cemetery and you're going to see balloons and streamers and stuff like that, where people, or teddy bears if you had children buried there,
mementos
and stuff like that.
of some sort.
That's not the case in a national cemetery. They don't allow those things. They do allow small American flags. They do allow flowers,
right?
But those flowers are picked up within a 2-week period, and there's a big sign posted out in the front and throughout the cemetery stating that these are the dates we're going to be picking up flowers. So if you're wanting to place flowers again, these are the dates we're picking them up, and then you can, of course, reinstall different flowers after that time. I don't know whether or not those flowers have to be live or plastic
or something like that,
right? Yeah. So I never got that close, but I saw some stones that were from the 1920s. I believe I saw some Civil War soldiers buried there, both sides, Union and Confederate. Mm-hmm. And the way it works is that all you have to do is spend 2 years active duty, and then you have the rights to be buried in a national cemetery. You just have to petition that national cemetery with your paperwork that's where you want to be, and also your immediate family, such as your wife,
children,
things like that, I believe can be buried there. I went there because my uncle's wife, my aunt, was being buried, and of course he spent 30 years in the military, in the Air Force. And so his stone will be there, and that's all free of charge to that veteran. They get a plot. Then the plot is then picked out for them, and then you receive a stone later on that's already been encrypted by a couple of companies that actually do the carving of the stone so that they can keep it uniform. All the stones will look the same.
Right.
And but it was more impressive than all these ornate stones that you might see at a different cemetery. Some guys,
one stone's ever the same.
Right. But it's almost, they're all the same.
Right.
They're all the same size. Yeah, even from the ones from the 1910s till now, they all are the same size.
All virtually the same color.
Right. Yeah. The spacing between the stones is exactly the same. And they're almost lined up so that no matter how you look, they're all lined up in one row or not. Right. So in 6 different points of looking at that same stone, you look in six different areas, and you look down and they're all lined up still, no matter where you're at. Standing.
You'll see 200 or 300 in one vision.
There are areas of the cemetery that actually have some flat stones, and I don't know why. I never asked the questions about that. And then there's areas that if you're cremated, that it's like a little locker where they stick your urine and your ashes, and then they inscribed on that outside of that little locker the same information you would see on a white stone.
Right.
The only thing, the word that kept coming to my mind the whole time I was looking at this cemetery was integrity, the big I word.
Yeah.
Because these men died, their families served with them.
Right.
And you just see, you feel proud, and you see the integrity of the stone itself. Seems like the word integrity just screams from it. And I know majority of those guys that are and women that are buried there just exude it just reeks of integrity. Right. And I was very proud to be there. Knowing that I had served 8 years, I didn't know that I would be eligible for something like that. And so my wife and I technically could be buried there, but we've already made arrangements that myself being in law enforcement, I have decided that I will not be buried. Well, I shouldn't say. Won't dictate the burial place.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
I'm going to be donated to a body farm so they can further study forensic science. And because I believe if some forensic science student can solve a crime down the line because of what they studied for on my body, then I'm all for that. The wife has decided to donate hers to science for the study of diabetes. So we won't be doing something like that. But I didn't know that was offered to any servicemen who served 2 years active duty.
2 years, wow.
Wow. So
there you go.
and it's free of charge. You just have to submit your paperwork ahead of time. And then that's what you'd like to do. And they'll save you a spot.
Wow. That's pretty crazy. Well, and you had mentioned you were in San Antonio with your uncle, Frankie. Of course, he was,
Right.
We had mentioned him on the podcast before about
Right.
when you were called down to the to your commander's office, and he's like, or your superior officer office, and there was a chief master sergeant in the area calling you for your name, and they're like, oh, crap, what has he done now?
What has he done now? Right.
And you addressed him as Frankie, and they're like, wait a minute. Whoa.
Wait. You don't address that chief as Frankie. Well, that's my uncle.
He's my uncle.
yeah.
Uncle Frankie, yeah.
Yeah. And then Frankie, all he did was he just said, well, I'm going to take this airman off base, so he needs his blue uniforms. And I was only 3 weeks in, so they hadn't issued our
Your
blues
dress
yet.
blues, yeah.
And so I got rushed through to get my blues. I was the first one in my squadron flight to
Good
receive
to have
my-
a chief master sergeant that it's in your
Right,
family.
Right. But the one thing I remember about basic training was that I didn't ever think it was long enough. It just doesn't seem those few weeks that you can transition from
How many
a
weeks
civilian
was
life.
it for you?
Off the top of my head, I want to say it was only like 6 weeks, but it may have been 12.
Yeah.
I don't know. You're talking 1981, so
Probably 6 weeks if I had to guess, but
yeah.
maybe.
I'd have to look at my. I do have a graduation book from.
Oh, there you go.
For the United States Air Force, and so that'll tell me the dates that we were actually in basic.
Yeah.
And of course, I remained there at Lackland Air Force Base in San Antonio, which is the main training base. And I remained there to go into security police training, which is at the same base, just
okay.
on the other side of it. But it was quite interesting because that was the first time I was back at Lackland Air Force Base since graduation in basic in November of 1981.
That was 40 years ago.
Yeah,
Wow.
and so that was the first time, and boy, did it bring back memories. I'm like, yeah, I remember that building. I remember that one. I remember that's the place where you could go and pick up burger, and it was a little dance hall. You could hang out and drink,
Wow.
play video games, and things that you could do. You weren't allowed to drink alcohol while you were in basic, but right afterwards, it was the day after graduation.
You started.
Well, graduation was on Friday. I didn't start security police training until Monday, so I had the
you
whole
had the
weekend
weekend.
on the base. I got assigned. I got assigned my dorm at security police training with 2 other guys in my room, and so we just thought, let's go to the Chaparral Club. I don't even know if that Chaparral Club's there anymore, but I remember, let's go there, man, because we can look at all the basic guys and thumb our nose at them that, hey, we're drinking and you can't yet, and all that stuff. So it was, we're wearing our blue uniforms, you're still wearing the olive drabs, and yeah, it was just,
Suck.
Yeah, and it was kind of funny because I saw some people on that base that looked like they were 10 years old, and they're senior master sergeants, and I'm like, wait a minute,
How the heck
I
did you
remember
go
the
there?
senior master sergeants were in their 50s when I was there. Yeah. So this guy, he's in his late 30s, early 40s, and he's already wearing, the chevrons up and down this, so I just, it was quite interesting.
Good grief.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The base has changed a whole lot.
Really?
Yeah. The expansion of the base. And of course, nearby to Lackland is Kelly Air Force Base, which at the time I was there, it was a MAC base. MAC meaning Military Airlift Command, the big cargo planes, the C-5,
okay.
C-141s, those were all there. So, yeah, and that's where Frankie was stationed. His job was pretty much personnel, making sure all these people were where they're supposed to be and that they got the recognition. And at the time, there was a thing called a STEP program where the chief could technically walk into any place like a maintenance division or something like that. And if somebody had excelled and they'd looked through the paperwork, that person get a STEP promotion right then and there. They can go from staff sergeant to tech sergeant without even testing.
Wow.
They can just, boom, they get a step promotion because they excelled on the job. So
How about that?
I don't know if they do something like that anymore, but yeah, that was that was a whole different time. And
Yeah, no kidding.
so I spent part of the weekend with him driving around Lackland Air Force Base and around San Antonio, and we talked about the differences that were back in the 80s, because, he served 30 years. 20 years is the normal for anybody in the military, and that's retirement age. He had to petition that, I believe it went all the way up to the president at the time. That is the president of the United States.
Right.
He petitioned to be able to remain in for another 10, so he served a full 30 years. So he was the highest ranking civilian or highest ranking non-commissioned officer in that area. He had spent 30 years. He was a chief master sergeant, but the hash marks up and down the shoulders. But he just a normal guy to me. but I saw him as my hero the whole time I served in the Air Force. I wanted to make sure that I made him proud. So
yeah,
that was always my goal, to make him proud. And my goal was always to stay in for the full 20 or even petition to get 30 years. I wanted to spend all that time in there.
Right.
Other things happened, and I ended up only spending 8 years in. Life happens. I had a death of a child while on base, and so I just decided at that time that it was probably best that I move on.
Yeah.
Because it was pretty difficult. I was raising 2 daughters by myself, plus having the one that passed away, and so it was just it would have been hard for me to continue in the job I was doing. I was a security policeman in the missile field, and so you go away for 3 or 4 days in a missile field. I got 2 daughters I got to take care of. So
you can't necessarily just go away for 3 or 4
ages
days 5
and 2.
Yeah.
It's kind of hard for me to do that. So it was probably best that I went ahead and got out. So best time I ever had in my life, though.
Yeah, like you said, if your body would allow you, you go back.
I'd go back in a heartbeat. But I spoke to a senior master sergeant who is Frankie's grandson. He's a senior master sergeant, and he showed up at the funeral. And he looks no older than you.
Really?
And I'm sitting there going, he's a senior master sergeant? Holy cow.
Not even 30 yet.
Yeah, I know. Well, I'm sure he's in his 40s.
At least.
Yeah, he's stationed at Dyess Air Force Base in Abilene.
Oh, okay.
And so's his wife. And his wife's in the military, but she's retiring this month from the military, having spent her time in. He will be retiring as soon as he get back. He's on deployment to Germany.
Wow.
So once he finishes deployment, he will retire also. So both of them young enough that they're going to take in retirement pay and start another job, because that's what Frankie, after his 30 years, he ended up working for a bank in the local San Antonio area, and he turned around and retired from the bank. So
yeah.
So you can you could spend that 20 years in the military, put your full time in, get full retirement pay or half retirement pay, I think it is, and then go and start another career because you're young enough to do that. So
well, yeah, and that's a lot of people I know. There's a lot of people my age that went into the military right after high school. They've already put in their time, and they're 25, 26, not even 30 yet, and they can go in for it.
Right.
So they'll spend 4 years, I think, is I don't know,
reservist.
I think it's just,
right.
Yeah.
I spent 2 years reservist after I got out. So
yeah,
and that was the deal. Is that every time you re-up, you have that, and they give you bonuses if you re-up for this many years or that many years. But they always like to tack on a little bit of reservist, because you never know what happens in the world. It's easier for them to call up a reservist who already has the training, and he's not that far removed from where he was, and he can go right back into it.
Versus a draft.
Right. Now, see, I got out in July of '89. It wasn't long after that, within 6 months or so, that we had the first Gulf War, I believe.
Yeah, I want to say it was 1990, I think. Maybe,
right. So about a year after that. So I was on reservist, but I never got called up.
Never got called. Yeah, that's crazy. Which, speaking of the draft, I believe, wasn't it Grandpa that got drafted?
He got a draft notice. However, he was, at that time, they weren't taking college students, and he was going to Garden City Community College as a football player. And so, so he didn't have to go. And not long after that, he got married, and so they weren't taking married or college students. So at that time in the draft, and which would have been in the Korean War, and so so he never had to go. Right.
That's
But he always told me he was proud one of his sons did serve, and
that's good. Yeah. By the way, Chief Master Sergeant Francis Barber. He is. It was his wife's funeral. That's
correct.
That's where you were in
that's
San
correct.
Antonio for. So
right, and then once she's finished being interned, then his lot will be right there with her.
Right,
not next to it. I believe they're on top of each other.
Top of each other. Yeah. I guess it's to save space or to
it is.
Allowed to,
it is.
So.
And so the front of the stone will have the active duty person.
It'll have him, and then on the back
and then on
side,
the back it's her information.
Right.
So, and vice versa. I've saw some women who served in the military, and they were on the front of the stone, the ones that served, and the husband is on the back who didn't serve.
Right.
So yeah.
Well, and I mentioned this before we went on, is that it's weird to, I guess, to have the spouse of the serving veteran die before the veteran himself, which I mean, maybe it's not too rare, but I mean, it's weird to think about, I guess. But I mean,
right, yeah, because the back of the stone will be completed long before he'll go.
Yeah,
and because the stone takes a month before it gets placed, at least a month, because of all the carving and the polishing and everything of the stone, because they're beautiful stones.
Mm-hmm.
But you never know if he passes before that. Then while the stone's in production, they might be able to add him,
throw him on there too.
Right.
But yeah, so that's what Snipes was doing in San Antonio this past week.
Spent time there for the funeral.
Yeah. So, well, and you had mentioned about National Cemetery. He got buried at Fort Sam Houston National Cemetery, or she got buried at Fort Sam Houston National Cemetery. The address there, 1520 Harry Wurzbach Road.
Yes,
I may be mispronouncing that, but anyway.
Yeah, go to Google Earth or whatever and look that up.
Look at that. And when you mentioned that, I tried to take there's a football field just behind the base that goes to, I guess it's I don't know if it's a high school or a college, the Cole Cougars, and I tried to take that football field probably for scale. I want to say it's about 15 or 20 of those football fields deep, and then about another 5 or 10 wide.
Wow,
of that.
That's a lot.
That's a lot of ground to cover.
when you first drive it in and you see those white stones, as far as the eye can see, is nothing but white stones, and it just keeps going.
Yeah,
and that's when you drive in. That's just the first half of it. Then you go underneath the bridge, which is there's a bridge there that the road separates so that you can get through to Fort Sam Houston, the base.
Right.
And so, because the cemetery is actually cutting the base in half.
Right in
or
there,
so.
yeah.
And so you go on that side, and it's just, as far as the eye can see, it's just nothing but white stones.
White stones. Wow.
And it is just majestic.
So it's almost safe to say that pretty much all the national cemeteries are mirror images of each other.
You would think,
because it sounds just like maybe a little brother to Arlington, but
right.
Apparently there are 6 national cemeteries in the state of Texas.
Wow.
Which you'd figure maybe there'd be more, but I don't know. There is one in DFW. There is one in El Paso. There's actually 2 in San Antonio. There's one. There's the Fort Sam Houston. There's also the San Antonio National Cemetery. However, it's a cremation only national cemetery, so they won't take. You won't see white stones out there. There is Fort Bliss in El Paso. There is the Houston National Cemetery and the Kerrville National Cemetery in Kerrville. So,
Kerrville, and I've been to Kerrville. I need to seek that out. Yeah. It's quite interesting because just walking amongst the stones and looking at the dates.
Yeah,
and looking at those that served.
I mean, there's history.
It's all history. You sit there and go, "Wow, he served World War II." There was one colonel there that had served World War II, Korea, Vietnam, and Afghanistan.
Wow.
So, the whole time. So he served his whole time. I don't know what much he did while he was in Afghanistan because it wasn't long after that he passed on. But you sit there and go, wow, that this guy had spanned that many wars. So,
yeah, I mean, he just kept serving and kept doing his duty until Yeah, it's
until
pretty
his
crazy.
body gave out.
Right, exactly. Yeah, it's pretty interesting to think about, especially like you said. Never knew there was more than one national cemetery.
Yeah, I always thought there was Arlington. That was it.
Apparently, according to the cemetery, the VA cemetery website with the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs, you can actually go there, the cem.va.gov. There are 155 national cemeteries in 42 states and Puerto Rico, as well as 34 soldiers' lots.
Okay.
So, which I believe we have a couple here in the state of Kansas. By the way, San Antonio National Cemetery there on Paso Hondo Street is the cremation only, or no, I'm sorry, the Kerrville National Cemetery. There are no lots open to that one, so it is officially closed. Yeah. In Kansas, there are 3 national cemeteries. One's in Fort Leavenworth, the Fort Leavenworth National Cemetery.
That one, yeah.
The Fort Scott National Cemetery, and of course the Leavenworth National Cemetery. That's actually in Leavenworth. So,
so there's Fort Leavenworth and Leavenworth?
Right. Yeah. Fort Leavenworth is a cremation only, though, National Cemetery. Fort Scott and Leavenworth are both open, have both open lots. There's one, but there's also 2 soldiers' lots, one in Baxter Springs and one in Mountain City. They are both full. So
yeah, I'm guessing the soldier plots are probably ones from pre-Civil War or
that's
something like that.
my guess too. Yeah. So. But yeah, you can actually go on there and look at all the different national cemeteries that are, just like I said, throughout. There's 42 states in Puerto Rico, 155 national cemeteries. There's also state cemeteries as well that are funded by the state. Some are funded, some are not. All the ones here in Kansas are the Kansas Veterans Cemetery at Fort Dodge. Of course, you can find that just right off the highway.
Right.
The Kansas Veteran Cemetery in Fort Riley. There's a veteran cemetery in Waukene, and there's one in Winfield as well. And they're all state funded. So, yeah, state cemeteries. I never knew that there were state.
And if you're a history buff, walk through a cemetery.
Yeah.
I mean, not just your local cemetery, but
national.
Go to some of these and look at the history, because some of these stones will tell you what this individual did.
Yeah.
A lot of them have beloved mother, beloved daughter, beloved husband, all that stuff. That's great. And those stones in those national cemeteries do have some of those writings on them. But when you look at what the individual who served, what he did, or she did,
right,
is quite interesting, because it puts their rank, what branch of service they served in.
Right.
It's kind of funny, because I went to the older one that had a lot of, Civil War or
Indian War, like you said.
Yeah, well, a little bit bit newer than after the Civil War and things like that. And it does say USA, and that doesn't mean United States of America. It means United States Army.
Right.
And so a lot of things, you could sit there and look at 20 stones and they all say USA, and they're like, well, duh, they're U.S. soldiers. Well, it means Army. United States Army, because they have the USAF or Air Force.
Air Force, right.
There were some that said USAAF, which is the United States Army Air Force.
Air Corps, yeah.
Yeah, and so, it's what they served in and what they did their time in. So
yeah, that's pretty crazy. Yeah, I forgot that the Air Force was actually derived from the Army Air Corps before it was its own.
And then there are sections at that Fort Sam Houston's National Cemetery. There are plots that say Coast Guard. And so a lot of them, not all of them, but a lot of them will just be Coast Guardmen. And then there'll be Navy sides,
Right.
It's almost like they were trying to divide them up amongst services. And then it just, to the point where they say, oh,
script.
Yeah, we've got so many here.
They served. He goes over there. They go over there.
It'll say it on their stone, what branch they served, what rank they were, and their birth dates, and some of them may even say the dates they served. And so,
wow, there you go. So, and of course, all the information, if you want to find it, it's at the VA website. Once again, cem.va.gov. You can also find what makes you eligible for a national cemetery. Like you said, it's 2 years.
That's what I was told. 2 years active duty.
There you go. And what kind of burial benefits you can get, what makes you eligible or ineligible, which dishonorable discharges, felony convictions, all that,
Right.
That makes you not eligible for that. So, and you can go there and apply for, all the benefits that you can get there to be
you can apply to be buried, yeah.
Yeah. So,
and at no cost to you if you've served.
That's right. That's how it works. So, quite the adventure. I mean, you're going there for a somber event, but you also took in a lot.
I took in a lot of history.
Yeah.
A lot of the parade grounds at Lackland were pretty just a big parade field with a couple of airplanes around it. Now it's gorgeous green field, which is the parade grounds. The stands used to be just stands that were sitting out there. Now the stands are all covered so that the people that are there on the parade grounds aren't getting beat by the sun.
Oh, yeah.
And then they added tons of airplanes to go around it. I remember that I want to say there was like 6 airplanes back in 1981. Now there's probably 30 that encase that whole parade field. And in one corner of the parade field, which I took a photograph of it, is a big memorial to the working dogs of the U.S. military and everything that they did. And so there's a big memorial, and it shows each breed of dog and what they did and where they served. And it's a beautiful working dog memorial that was right there. Right there at Lackland Air Force Base, and it was quite interesting.
Very interesting. Yeah, I didn't know that. Yeah. So you took a lot of history, which, I mean, for you yourself is kind of,
I'm a history buff anyway.
Yeah, you just kind of take it in yourself. So, I guess we'll kind of jump right into this section. We had mentioned about the Air Force history test. And I guess the first question, I mean, I think every serviceman in the Air Force should know, who is considered the father of the Air Force? Do you know? Personally?
Off the top of I want to say Hap Arnold.
He's not one of the choices.
Okay, give me a choice.
So the choices are Army General Carl Toohey Spatz, Army General William Billy Mitchell, Air Force Sergeant John Levitow, or Chuck Yeager. He was our Air Force General Chuck Yeager.
Okay, so the father of the Air Force?
Quote-unquote father is what they have here.
Okay, yeah, which would have to go back, I want to say the Army days. So it's
probably an Army General.
Right. I'm going to say Spatz.
Spatz? It is incorrect. It is Billy Mitchell.
Billy Mitchell.
Army General William Billy Mitchell.
And for those that don't know who Billy Mitchell was, I believe it's what the B-25 was named after, the Mitchell bomber.
Mitchell bomber, yep.
So, yeah.
There you go. That's interesting.
Yeah.
Which celebrity did not serve in the Air Force?
Oh, my.
Chuck Norris, Jimmy Stewart,
he did.
Elvis Presley, or Morgan Freeman?
That would be Elvis Presley. He served in the Army.
Army kid.
The rest of them did serve in the Air Force.
Elvis Presley.
In fact, Chuck Norris was a security policeman like myself.
No kidding.
Serving in Korea. That's when he learned how to do martial arts. While he was serving in Korea.
That's where Chuck Norris officially became Chuck Norris.
That's right.
Grew the third fist coming out of his chin. Who is the only Air Force officer to hold the 5-star rank in both the Air Force and the Army? Is it Air Force General Henry Hap Arnold, Air Force General Curtis LeMay, Army General Dwight D. Eisenhower, and Air Force General James Doolittle? You had mentioned Hap Arnold earlier.
Yes, I did. And Hap Arnold, that kind of says, now Curtis LeMay was I believe was the first commander of the U.S. Air Force when it became an entity.
There you go.
And then Jimmy Doolittle was of the Doolittle Raiders during World War II. So he served in the Army Air Corps, but I don't know if he served in the Air Force. So I'm going to go with Hap Arnold.
Hap Arnold. Let's see here. Correct.
Okay.
He was one of the first military pilots worldwide and one of the first 3 rated pilots in the history of the Air Force. He also founded the Project RAND and is recognized by the Air Force Research Laboratory as a visionary who first articulated that superior research and development capabilities are essential to deterring and winning wars.
And I'm not sure if this is correct or not, but I believe he was the first one to prove to the naval officers that a little tiny airplane with one bomb could take down a ship. And so they took a decommissioned ship out into the harbor, and one of his pilots with a bomb dropped it, and then it was a biplane. It was a little fabric biplane.
Wow.
Dropped a bomb and sunk it, and that's when the Navy realized that air power was now superior over to naval power. So.
See ya. Yeah. Okay, this might be right up your alley. Which of the aircraft below here is the youngest? Is it the A-10, the B-52, the KC-135, or the U-2?
The youngest?
The youngest.
A-10.
The A-10 is correct. Yeah, the first A-10 Thunderbolt, was delivered
1970s?
to the Air Force in 1975.
That's right.
And the upgraded A-10C reached operational capability in 2007. It is designed for close air support.
Right. The 52 was born in 52. The U-2 was born in the 60s, I want to say sometime.
The 135?
And the 135 was a tanker version of the Boeing 707, so I want to say 1958 off the top of my head. But
there you go. What is I mentioned this as a joke back on episode 17 when we were talking about the Ronald Reagan story. What is the radio call name for any U.S. Air Force plane carrying the president?
Air Force One.
Air Force One.
That is not the plane. That is the plane carrying the president.
That's right. He can be on any kind of plane.
He could be on a little Cessna, and as long as he's in it, the call sign is Air Force
including One. The plane that landed where you were at in Nebraska. So when you met him.
No, he did not land there.
Oh, you landed off base.
Technically, he was in a helicopter when I saw him.
Oh, okay. There you go.
So I don't know if that Air Force
maybe he
helicopter
landed off base and then brought him on.
The base didn't have a landing field. I think he was flown in
somewhere.
My guess, because I don't know, I was out at the missile field. My guess is that because he was in Denver doing a speaking event for a senator. I want to say they left Air Force the VC-137, which is what the actual aircraft is. They left that there, and he probably flew on Marine One to our base,
okay,
and then got in an Air Force helicopter.
See now, yeah, Marine One would be the aircraft that he's inhabiting. What is it?
It's the helicopter.
Yeah, the helicopter.
The one that lands on the lawn at the White House, and they get on, and then it takes him to Andrews Air Force Base, where he actually
gets on Air Force One. There you go. U.S. Air Force. We had mentioned this before. Which used to be part of which military branch?
Army.
Yeah, U.S. Army. Before it was established as its own in 1947, the Air Force was a part of the U.S. Army. In 1907, the U.S. Army Signal Corps created the Aeronautical Division, which over time evolved into the U.S. Army Air Forces. So, the United States Air Force shares a birthday with this federal entity. Is it the FBI, the IRS, the CIA, or NASA?
I'll go with NASA.
It's not NASA. It's CIA.
CIA.
The National Security Act of 1947 officially separated the United States Air Force into its own military branch and created the Central Intelligence Agency. The act was a major restructuring milestone for the United States military and intelligence agencies post-World War II.
Okay.
So there you go.
Did they give the date there? October 14th, 15th, something like that? They don't.
Yeah, I don't know. I'd have to look that up. I'd say so. The Air Force's
something
birthday
tells me something tells me it's October 14th or October 15th of 1947.
There you go. The Air Force birthday is September 18th, 1947. So
okay, I was way off.
And at the same day, the CIA was created. So there you go. What year did the Air Force issue their first Santa Claus sighting? Was it 1948, 1930, 1950, or 1945?
1950?
It either had to be 48 or 50 because it had to be after the Air Force did. It was 1948. It was not 50. Yeah. It reported that they had one unidentified sled powered by 8 reindeer at 14,000 feet, heading 180 degrees. Right. This one-time event prompted the now famous yearly NORAD.
NORAD, the North Atlantic. Oh gosh, I used to know what it is.
Yeah.
North
Oceanic Radar.
No, well, it's something like that.
Something like that.
It's
a Santa tracker. So.
It's Cheyenne Mountain Complex out near Colorado Springs.
Yeah.
It's where they track all incoming missiles, airplanes, everything.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah,
and of course the NORAD Santa tracker, which kids can watch.
Which is always neat because they used to broadcast that on the radio when I was a kid.
Really,
that NORAD had noticed coming up over the North Pole. They tracked it. So.
The unidentified flying object with 8 reindeer or sleigh with reindeer. We may have already answered this question. Who's the only 5-star general in Air Force history? Eddie Rickenbacker, Billy Mitchell, Robin Olds, or Henry Arnold?
Henry Hap Arnold, I thought.
Henry Hap Arnold, yeah. The only general to hold a 5-star rank. He served in both World War I and World War II before his death in 1950.
And right now, if you're on the chief, or if you're on the chief of staff for the president of the United States, each branch of the military has one chief of staff member, and in the Air Force, it's a 4-star. It won't go 5. So
wow, there you go. I think we already mentioned his name before, but who broke the sound barrier?
General Charles Chuck Yeager, and I was lucky enough to meet him.
Oh, really? Where'd you meet him?
They were conducting the 40th anniversary of the Air Force while I was in, and I went to a speaking event of and he happened to be there, and I can't find it anymore. But I had he had an autobiography about his days because he started out on what they called the Flying Sergeants program when he was in the Army.
Wow!
And so they had sergeants learning how to fly, and that's how he started as an enlisted officer or a non-commissioned officer as a sergeant and learned how to fly. And once they got away from the Flying Sergeants program, him already being a pilot, they went ahead and gave him a commission. So,
oh, there you go. Yeah. Well, and you've mentioned about October 14th or 15th, 1947. Yeah. October 14th, 1947 was the day he broke the sound barrier.
I knew there was something about that date. Okay. I knew it was something about that date.
He flew an experimental Bell X-1 at Mach 1, or roughly 700 miles per hour, on October 14th, 1947. The aircraft were known as the glamorous Glennis.
Right.
Glennis is now on display at the Smithsonian.
Right. And he also named his P-51 Mustang that he used to fly during the war, World War II, the glamorous Glennis. And that was his wife's name, Glennis.
There you go. That's pretty cool. Which 2 presidents served in the Air Force? Last question. Is it... oops. Yeah, just kind of lost it there for a second. Kennedy and Nixon, Reagan and Bush, Obama and Bush Sr., or Ford and Carter?
Okay, there was Ford and Carter. Okay. We know it's not Obama. Obama never
Bush Sr.,
served.
no, right.
And Bush Sr. served in the Navy. What were the other options?
Kennedy and Nixon or Reagan and Bush?
It had to be...
I'm thinking it's Reagan and Bush.
But Bush Sr.
Bush Jr., though. This is called... We're talking about Bush Jr., I think.
Okay. So W...
Yeah,
served in the Air National Guard. I don't believe he served in the Air Force, which is the National Guard version of the United States Air Force. So I'm going to say Reagan Bush.
Reagan and Bush is correct. Yeah.
Okay.
The President Ronald Reagan served in World War II from 1937 to 1945. President George W. Bush served in both the Texas Air National Guard and the Air Force Reserve during Vietnam.
Right.
So he did serve, but was not...
Right. I believe Carter
actively in there.
Carter did serve, but I believe it was the Navy.
Oh, okay.
So Carter did serve.
And as well as Bush Sr., you said served in the Navy.
Served in the Navy. He was actually shot down.
Oh, wow.
And spent some time in the water before he was picked up and rescued. So,
Wow. There you go. You learn something new every day, folks, here on Uncaged. But unfortunately, we are out of time for this week. But we thank you for joining us. We'll probably be back in the moon next week with a brand new topic for episode number, is it 29? Or is it going to be Ron and Cut 10?
We'll see.
No, it will be episode number 29. So, yeah. Join us live in Loving's Moon. I mean, if you want to come out and actually see what we're all about, then you can. We're live in person. We're very approachable, except for that one drunk guy. Remember that in Wrong Cut 9? That was kind of frustrating, honestly. But no, we're very impressionable, and we love seeing our fans. So come in and see us live at Loving's Moon next week. Until then, we'll see you. Bye.
Thanks for listening to Uncaged. Tune in next week for more. This has been brought to you by Loving's Moon, Tim and Jerry's Auto Sales, Garden Bowl, American Gratitude, Patrick Dugan's Coffee House, and AAA Loans and U-Haul.